Okay, today we come outside so we've got a little bit more clearance so we can have a play with handstand canes. Now handstand canes are obviously seen as progressions towards a one-arm handstand or a tool that you use when learning the one-arm handstand. In a lot of cases, once you get used to the gripping of the cane itself and the slight movement, these ones don't move that much, but some of them really move. Learning to one-arm handstand is much easier on blocks and canes. However, for a lot of people, there's a lot of benefit in just learning to handstand at a height. So you could just play with boxes or wall or anything like that, and I recommend that you start with that, not start on something like this, especially that can move around. So I would actually go for something like this, something where you got a wall here. Ideally, this would be grass or something where it doesn't drop off the other side. And then you can just play with kicking and jumping up like so, and just building the confidence to go up on top of your hands, but always pushing back this way. And then obviously you need to have a handstand balance, or a window of balance that you can hold for time that you're trying to access. If you don't have that, you're going to need a wall there, you're going to need a spotter. So ideally you'd be doing this when you already have a freestanding handstand, but you can work on this before that if you do have that type of safety in place. And then learning to exit from a height is very important. So as I twist and turn, I might move my hand and go like so, but I'm making sure that I don't step the hand off until my feet are below my hands. So twisting and turning out is really important. And exactly the same when I'm on the high canes, I need to know what to do when I go over. Now I just twist and turn and push away. Again, my feet come lower than my hands before I lift the hands. That should all naturally happen, but it is going to feel a little bit scary to start with. And then I'll just be doing exactly the same as you've done. Actually, you could do this. So you could set up something like this. Ideally, this wouldn't be a post, it would be a wall, but you can play with kicking or jumping up to position. Now I say kick or jump, but on these higher canes, you definitely have to jump. But now look, I'm using my toe support. I can practice pulling into the handstand and have the safety if I feel like I'm going to go over, that the wall is there. Post isn't great because I could miss it. Then we just go through exactly the same drills as we learned when we was going through our freestanding handstand on the floor. So we want to hold in a straight position for time. We want to make sure that we're comfortable in our straddle handstand and going between the straight and the straddle, and exactly the same with the tuck. So getting time in your tuck position and being able to access it via our straight and access it via straddle. If we get to the point where we can hold straddle, tuck and straight with control, you're ready to start to work towards other progressions like one-arm handstand. Now also notice that I'm using round blocks. They could be standard blocks, more of that rectangular shape. And you will see canes that are angled as well like this, but that's more to mimic hand to hand. So if our canes are sloped like that, that's the same or the equivalent to having that type of base when you're doing hand to hand. But the shape of the blocks don't matter in terms of the one-arm handstand progressions. We do exactly the same. So let's just go through them again. I'm going to do it in straddle because that's the easiest variation. I'm going to show you on my dominant arm because I can show the steps cleaner. So we're going to go into a two-arm handstand first. I'm going to go into a straddle position. Now trying to keep in the tightest position I can with the elbows pushed in towards the midline. I'm just going to try flagging side to side. Now as I do this, I'm trying to keep the arms dead straight. I don't want the elbows to bend. They will bend, but try not to allow them to do that, and try and bring the elbows as much as you can towards the midline. So here I'm trying to push the left elbow in towards the midline. Here I'm trying to push the right elbow in towards the midline. Then come down with control. Okay, next I'm going to do exactly the same. I'm going to flag over to one side. I'm just going to hold in that position while trying to push this elbow in towards the midline. So as I flag this way, the elbow is going to want to break like that. I'm going to try and push it in and keep it there all the time. Hold for 5 to 10 seconds and then come back again. So straddle, flag, elbow in towards the midline. Now I'm also looking at my right hand while I'm doing this. So there. Let's go over and just do it on the left side as well, which ideally you'll do. You'll do both sides. You might need to come down in between when you're learning, and then back to the center, back to straight. Try and do that as much as you can with all these drills, is return to center and return to straight handstand. That's just good practice and we'll keep everything as clean as possible. Okay, for the next level, we're flagging across to this side. I'm trying to bring this elbow in and I'm looking down towards the hand. I'm now going to try and get a little bit of weight transfer. So I'm going to try and bring the sacrum, so the middle of the hip, more on top of the shoulder, while the shoulder is trying to push in towards the midline. What we don't want to happen is as I try and bring the middle of the pelvis or the legs this direction, the shoulders go this direction as well, because the shoulder's going to end up in no man's land here, off the edge of the cliff, and I'm going to fall down. In reality, you'll just rotate or twist and fall out to the side. So as I try and transfer weight, I'm looking at the hand, I'm trying to maintain that position, and most importantly, keep the elbow and shoulder pushed in towards the midline. So here, elbow in, look at the hand, transfer weight. So I've definitely got less weight in my left hand now, but it's really hard to maintain that elbow position. Notice on the weak side, same thing, my left elbow wants to bend, but I'm transferring weight. Now notice, I haven't come up to fingertips. Most people will try and do the fingertip way too fast. They'll even try and throw the hand up way too fast. We all do it, but try and delay that as much as possible. Get as much weight out of this hand before we come to fingertips. Ideally, there'll be no weight in this left hand. I'll come to fingers, no weight in that left hand. Come to finger, no weight in the left hand, lift hand, no weight in those fingers. In reality, as we go through these stages, we're gonna have a mixed bag in terms of how much weight in here, but over time we want to start to decrease that as much as possible while maintaining control. Okay, next stage we'll do exactly the same thing, but I'm going to try and come up onto fingertips. Now when I come up onto fingertips, one of the things that's going to naturally happen is this shoulder is going to get high. Now we don't want this shoulder higher than this shoulder because again, it makes us rotate or fall out. So ideally what's going to happen is as I come up onto fingers, I'm going to bend the elbow, which allows me to maintain the height of the shoulders so they're in line. But it only really works if this hand has got a lot less weight in it. So straddle, look at the hand weight shift, flag, then go up onto fingertips, see the elbows bent, come down, swap over, exactly the same thing. Fingertips, not so good, see the left elbow bending, have to tidy it up. And back again. Now in reality, what's going to happen is if you're newer to it, if that happens, the elbow bends and doesn't stay in towards the midline as I transfer weight, you're going to fall. Because there are thousands of repetitions that I've done, and because I can do one-arm handstands, I've got lots of room for error. Now you're not going to have that to start with, so it just means you're going to fall out of position a lot. The one-arm handstand is lots and lots of falling, but just make sure that when you're doing it, that you're practicing that repetition of those earlier stages, so you're still doing that every time. Even if you're falling out, you're getting more and more reps, quality time under tension, quality working repetitions of those foundations that you slowly build upon as you work through the levels. Okay, now we're going to do exactly the same thing. Back up to those fingertips. Now when I get to fingertips, I'm just going to start to reduce fingers. Now depending on how much control and balance I have, I can go all the way to one finger, I can take the thumb away, I can just start to play with less help from this hand. But exactly the same setup. So straddle, flag, look at the hand, elbow in, fingertips, and then just see if you can reduce fingers. Still bending that elbow to keep the shoulders level, and then come back down with control. Repeat on the other side if you have it. Elbow in, less fingers, back down with control. Remember, try and get back to your straight position and come back down. Now to get to that stage from that initial flagging work, you're probably looking at around 6 to 12 months. So don't rush it. Some people will go there faster. Some people will be slower, but just enjoy the journey, slowly progress through it. You can play with other body positions. So instead of being a straddle, you could try diamond. You can try straight. Now, a lot of people will think that straight is easier until they go to lift the hand. For 99.9% of people, that will feel easier in straight to start with on those earlier variations. But when you go to lift the hand, all hell breaks loose and you just rotate, fall out, just feel really heavy. So everyone will find straddle easier. The more flexible you are, the easier the straddle difference or split will make, and it'll get easier and easier. So if you have over splits, most people will find it way easier to learn to handstand or one-arm handstand than if you have less flexibility there. But the big thing is there's so many different variables. Just enjoy your journey and just make sure every month that you're progressing. Okay, so we've got to the magic one finger, and now there's no weight in this finger. We have a few options. Now the cool thing with being raised up and being on canes is that you can't use this option where we reach out and touch the floor over here. So if I'm doing a one-arm handstand and I actually don't know if you can see me, let me do it. here to make sure you can see me. If I do this, flag over to one side, go fingertips, finger tip, and then do this. This feels like a progression. It's easier to not raise the shoulder because now I've created more space by going out to the side. But the downside of this one is now I've increased the base of support. So in a lot of ways, I've made it easier. And that does tend to lead to this when you lift up, that your body will fall sideways. So I'm not a big fan of using the reached out arm position, but you can play with that one. Now, being on the cane stops you from doing that because there's nothing here to reach to. So you've basically got two options. You could do this, or you can take the hand out to the side. You could drop it down. That's another option, which again is a bit easier to deal with the shoulder, but it does tend to pull you down. Most people, the best option is going to be something like this. So just lifting the finger for a second and coming back down. Now that might be the best option from a training point of view. It's probably not the option you're going to do. This will be the option that everyone does, and that throws the position out. Ideally, you want to keep everything as clean and as still as possible. So over to one side, all those layers, fingertips, finger tip, finger up, back down, finger up, back down. So you can then go for repetitions, obviously just one to start with, show control. Try and get back to your straight position, then add repetitions of that. Then once you have repetitions down, you could just hold for more time. So hold there for like 3 or 4 seconds, back down again. Again, that's going to take months and months to get to a point where that's really controlled. I actually find that harder than lifting the arm completely. That's once you have a one-arm handstand. But when you're first learning, when you do reach the arm up, it is going to tend to do this. So you'll go into that nice position, you go to fingertip, then you reach the arm up, and that tends to happen is it will cartwheel you out. So as best you can, try and make this hand floppy. If you do lift it, try not to have any energy there, and try as hard as you can not to lift this shoulder. Now along the way as you're doing this, what will tend to happen is your straddle is going to change. So instead of staying like this, your top leg is going to try and go over. It's go over this way, over that way. It will try and bend to help you because it's trying to encourage you to go in this direction. You'll tend to do this as well. So you'll reach out to the side. So all of those things are going to happen. The best thing you can do is video yourself from the back and look at your video in between your repetitions so you can see what you're actually doing instead of what you think you're doing. Because you'll create habits very fast, and if you can see them and try and fix them earlier, it's much easier. Okay, next let's look at actually lifting the arm. Now when I lift the arm, I want to be doing this with my shoulder. I don't want to be doing this. Like I said before, this shoulder is going to really cartwheel you out if you take it too high. So try and keep the arm coming up, but the shoulder down when you do it. And only go for a small movement to start with and come back again. Like the finger lifts, we can do repetitions, and then we can just hold for time, making sure you get back as a priority. So exactly the same, to fingertips, to finger tip, reach out to the side. That one wasn't good. I started to drop back towards the midline. So try again, better. Yeah, okay, so see the shoulder there isn't lifting too much. It was moving a little bit. I was having to move about here. But exactly the same as a two-arm handstand, this base, the shoulder, the elbow, the hand, is the most important thing when we're rebalancing, not the legs. We don't want to be doing this. We used to do that in our two-arm handstand. We learned how to fix that with the shoulders, the arms, the fingers, the focal point. Exactly the same here. Looking down, elbow, hand, and shoulder movement is the main focus in terms of rebalancing. And the biggest thing to get your one-arm handstand is just consistency of training, constantly chipping away at it. Use it as your warm-up before your strength training. You want to be training 4 to 6 times a week and really enjoy the journey. Let me know if you have any questions with this one. If you're after programs and more help with your training, check out my app or my online coaching, and I'll speak to you in the next one.